Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Swiss Army Sports. Today is March 24th of the Big 26, episode 51 coming your way. I'm your host, Will Spain, former long snapper for the Troy Trojans, Ospey Governors, and partially Houston Cougars. Joined by my side, former office lineman for the Hendrix College Warriors, current man of electricity, Luke Wallman, and joined virtually former kicker for the Houston Christian Huskies and Troy Trojans, Chase Cross. I'm leaving out. Yeah, I'm done with the other part of the introduction now. You know, it's a sour topic. Very happy for the Cross family. Very happy. Cannot underestimate that enough. Very happy for the family. Sucks as a Troy alumni and a fan, but very happy for the family. Agenda, we got to give our recap for the rounds 1 and 2 of March Madness. A little bracket reset. Other than Chaser, which actually the bracket he put on here is different than the one he entered in our pool. His bracket on here sucks, just like the rest of ours, but the bracket in the pool is actually in second place, so shout out Chaser on that one. Women's March Madness look-in. A lack of things to gamble on has pivoted to us actually watching women's hoops. Pretty entertaining, at least on Monday, really, when it was a dead spot. Only one NHL game. It was, yeah, boys were itching, brother, I'll tell you that much. But we cashed a $220 parlay, so that was pretty lit. NASCAR Darlington recap, always good at the Southern 500. Good race. Can't believe who won again for the fourth time this freaking year. Unbelievable run that 23XI's having in NASCAR. Michael Jordan, dude, he is just on top of stuff. Got people thinking, though, on Twitter, never since they won this lawsuit, all of a sudden their cars kind of seem a little juiced. Who knows? We'll pay a little catch up there. NHL playoff races. I mean, it is getting down to the nitty-gritty, guys. If you're playing fantasy hockey, you're in your playoffs now, which evidently means you are at the end of the regular season. I believe there's like 3 weeks left. We have very close races in both the East and West, especially in the wild card. We'll talk about the playoff races heating up, and we also give our playoff predictions. Who do we think is going to get in 3 weeks out? It's anyone's game. At least 5 deep in the East, and pretty much 4 deep in the West. Could even be 6 deep in the East. I mean, it really is a toss-up. This is an unbelievable week. As I'm Polish, so I'm very partial, but this is a very big week. UEFA and Intercontinental playoff predictions. We have international soccer, last spots going out for the FIFA World Cup this year in the United States coming our way. I believe they're on the 26th of March. I think every single one of at least the first round games in the UEFA playoffs and then the Intercontinental playoffs are on the 26th. So it's going to be a very packed day of watching some football with either just one O or a U, not American football. But that comes Thursday. EPL table look-in. Chase is going to go through the EPL table and tell us what's going on over across the pond. NBA look-in, I'm going to kind of hand that one off to Luke. He's going to touch on the association this year, what's going on in the NBA. I'll talk a little bit about my red-hot playoff, bracket buster Phoenix Suns that are we look pretty damn good. Need Dylan Brooks back from the penitentiary, but we got things rolling in the best of the weekend. Let's kick it off, boys, and we'll go quick region by region here. Duke got bailed out against Siena. I think we can say that straight up, and they got bailed out again against TCU. And my honest opinion about this is, they said they're going to crack down on the refs and gambling. I don't think this has anything to do with gambling. I think it's an agenda the NCAA is trying to push that gets their number 1 overall seed to the Sweet 16 in 2 games. I think they. If this was, and I just objectively saying this, I don't like Duke. However, I can just objectively watch a basketball game and can tell that the officiating, once these games get tight in the second half, obviously, it's very obviously becomes slanted. Luke, I know you agree with this opinion with me.
Yeah, no, because I've never really hated Duke. I hate Boozer. I hate him, but I've never really hated Duke. But, when TCU has double the fouls, you shot double the free throws, and their coach just gets an absolute phantom
tech.
That's insane. And then they against Siena, which I guess Siena doesn't go to the goal a whole bunch, but they shot 25 more free throws than Siena did. Some of the officiating, and I'm going to piggyback off this. Arizona, they shot like 50 free throws almost.
And Utah State was in that game too.
going to the goal. It wasn't like Utah State was just staying out.
Yeah, we'll touch on the West in a second, though. But yeah,
Yeah.
Chase, what did you think about these two Duke games? And we'll touch on this or just real briefly. TCU looked really good against Ohio State. Ohio State came out really flat. TCU took advantage of that, and they got on in the second round. But really, the question here in the top bracket of this East is Duke. What did you think about the Blue Devils? And then, do you think the officiating really kind of bailed them out here?
Mm, I don't have as strong of an opinion on that as you guys do. I mean, we all know across the entire NBA, the NBA wants their top seeds in the final rounds for ratings, for money, for revenue. I mean, that's clear. So there's going to be a little bit of bias, but that's why we love March, because there's still an ability for an upset, even with the officiating. So the officiating always is going to be skewed. I mean, I saw it firsthand in the Troy Nebraska game, and that game wasn't even close, but there was still some discrepancy in the officiating, and that's going to be the same all across March. So definitely Duke is going to be favored on the officiating side, but I definitely think that, you know, out of this group of teams, they were the best team and they deserve to come out of it. However, I think TCU put on a really strong showing, especially in the first half against Duke. They looked great against Ohio State, like y'all said. Played a really good first round game, and then in the round of 32, I thought they competed really well with Duke. And shout out to Sienna. I mean, I know their coach just got a big time job. Where did he end up going?
Syracuse. He ended up at Syracuse. His alma mater, though. He played
Yeah,
there.
Syracuse. Yeah, Syracuse. Yeah. So I mean, that shout out to him too. I mean, they were really well coached, played really well. Honestly, I was very impressed with how the CNN team competed versus Duke. Definitely got a tough draw. I think if they're a 15 seed or maybe even a fringe 14 seed, they would have maybe pulled an upset or kept it even tighter than they did with Duke. But they played. I mean, they attacked Duke in all the ways that Duke was supposed to be attacked. But I will say this Duke team is very resilient. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Georgia football team that we saw this last season, where they're not really blowing any of these teams out, and they're getting they're getting favorable calls, but they're resilient. They go down and they come find ways to win. And it's eventually going to catch up to them. I don't think this is a national champion Duke squad, but I do think that they are still a talented roster, and there's got to be something that's said for winning games in March.
100%. Now pivoting to this next little section, St. John's looked unbelievable in their first game against Northern Iowa. Some people kind of thought this was going to be a close, uptight game. They dominated. Kansas dominated most of the game against Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist made a run. I mean, they have a dude. I'm blanked on his name, but they have a dude. He's been good for Cal Baptist all year. And as I said, and I also want to pivot back. I was about to say this. I said that draw for Duke was going to be tough in the first round. If you go back and listen to episode 50, Siena had a slot as a high 15, low 14. I thought that was a pretty brutal draw for Siena, let alone Duke. But anyways, yeah, St. John's took care of business. They meet Kansas in the second round. Game ended up being really tight, but I think St. John's just looked like the obvious better team here. What do you think, Luke, then Chase?
Yeah, the only issue with St. John's, I would say, was the offense, because we all know they play defense. And I mean, watching that Kansas game was abysmal in that first half because there was no offense at all. The under was absolutely free. But if St. John's can come out and just even halfway replicate what they did in the first game against Duke, I think they have a very good chance to win because they are going to be able to lock down Duke defensively. I don't see Boozer having a great game. I mean, we've seen when he goes up against an athletic big, he struggled against TCU with their athletic bigs. And I just think, he'll get his 15 because of free throws. He'll shoot a bunch of free throws if this has been like the Duke games for TCU and Siena. But I think Ejiofor is going to be able to kind of manhandle him down low. And it's going to be very interesting to see with the matchup, and if St. John's can actually get something going offensively to beat Duke.
Chase, how about you?
I think that's going to be a tricky matchup for St. John's. I think both of these teams have been elite. I just think we're undervaluing Duke a little bit. Yes, they played 2 close games, and yes, the ACC championship was close, but this is a team that has been, they have 2 losses all year. So, I mean, I know it's March. I know it's tough, but I still trust John Shire as a coach. I think he's one of the best young coaches in the sport. And flipping it over to St. John's, Rick Pitino has done a phenomenal job. I mean, this guy's just a basketball junkie, one of my favorite human beings that coaches any sport, not just basketball. I mean, this guy is
Hardly agree.
outside, his drama. But, I mean, he's been super fun to watch at St. John's. I mean, this is a true basketball junkie, and Zuby Ejiofor is just a phenomenal talent. The St. John's team is really fun to watch. They play excellent defense. They play hard-nosed. I mean, they're just really a talented group, but I think Duke is just a whole different challenge. And I think it all comes down to how well, Caden Boozer and Isaiah Evans play off of Cam Boozer because, everybody's kind of figured out if you put an athletic big on Cam Boozer, it makes it a little bit difficult for him to score. And I think he's ultimately going to overcome it because he's too good to not. But right now, he's struggling with it a little bit. But I think both of these coaches are going to have really good game plans set. They have 4 days to prep for this one. It's going to be an absolute banger. I can't wait to watch it.
Out of the bottom half of the Eastern region, Louisville escaped South Florida. I mean, they handled this game for most of the game. South Florida made a late push. Michigan State absolutely dominated North Dakota State. UCLA tried to give it away to UCF at the end of that game and ended up not covering. Pretty pissed at UCLA for that. But they looked good in the first half of that game, at least, and at least the first half of the second half. I mean, they just kind of fell apart towards the end, and we kind of saw that against UConn as well. And UConn, I mean, just edged by Furman. I mean, I think referee was kind of slanted a little bit there too. I mean, Furman was making shots left and right. Kind of saw a little high point action, honestly, back with UConn. Furman. UConn then they just kind of ran away with it against UCLA, won by 16. And Louisville, Michigan State was just, yeah, the score was not a blowout, but I just felt Michigan State outmatched them up and down the floor.
Dominated the whole game.
Yeah, and so we got Michigan State and UConn. We'll obviously talk about that in our bracket breakdown. But out of these, I guess, 8 teams, what stood out for you, Luke, in this bottom half of the East? And then how about you, Chase? Because for me, it's really about, yeah, I think we've got more depth on this Michigan State team than we were originally thinking with just Fears. I think Kohler stepped up in a big role for them. And then I think this UConn team we slept on a little bit, especially with Caravan able to take over when, Solo Ball isn't playing as well and score 27 points. So, yeah, Luke and Chase, what did you take away from this bottom half of the East?
Yeah, Terrace Reed and Caravan are the only reason this UConn team's alive because, 30-30 is insanity. What he did against Furman with Terrence Reed. And then, obviously, Caravan keeping them down the stretch because UCLA went on one of their patented cold stretches. And I hate this UConn team. I also hate this Michigan State team because I don't think they're the elite, of the elite where you would see in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that kind of worries me with this game. I think this is going to be a betting nightmare come this week because I honestly don't know who you can go with. But I like UConn just because I think they have more scoring. I think with Caravan and if Ball plays okay, then you have Terrace Reed on them down low. I just kind of have more faith in their March veterans and for their ability to score.
Chase, what did you get from watching these games in the East from these teams?
I don't love either one of these teams. I would have loved to see St. John's at maybe a 3 or somewhere to challenge down on this half of the bracket. I haven't been super high on Michigan State all year, and UConn down the stretch to me hasn't looked dominant at all. Hasn't looked like the previous UConn teams we've seen, and I think the same thing can be said throughout the tournament. I mean, none of us were really thinking that Louisville, especially with the injuries that they incurred, that they were going to really challenge in March. We were looking at them to be a potential upset to USF, and they almost did get upset. USF just didn't start the game strong enough. And then Michigan State, I mean, obviously they dominated North Dakota State and kind of dominated the Louisville game the entire time. So I guess you could say Michigan State's looked pretty good, but I haven't been blown away with UConn either. I thought Furman actually played them really well, like I said they would in our last episode. Furman gave them a real good run for their money.
Yes, they did.
And then, I mean, for most of that game, it looked like UCLA was going to pull away and potentially upset UConn, and kind of pissed me off how, like Luke said, they went on one of their patented cold streaks and really struggled down the stretch. So I just think UConn has kind of limped into this Sweet 16 matchup. I like Michigan State to kind of win here. Tom Izzo's going to have his guys playing well, and not to say Dan Hurley won't, but Michigan State looks like they're playing better basketball as of now. And, I'd like to probably see a John Shire Tom Izzo matchup in the Elite Eight, which is kind of what I can see coming from here.
Not the Carpenter Hills Parade, but let's save these predictions for the next slides. I'm just trying to give a little recap here. Arizona took care of Long Island. Fins up for the last time this March. All respect to LIU. Utah State just skated by Villanova, really pulled away late in the half. Appreciate that late fins up there, Chaser. And And then, I mean, yeah, that Arizona State or Utah State game was really close coming down the stretch. Arizona was able to pull away at the end. Yeah, officiating maybe a little slanted in that one, but I thought Arizona honestly was the better team. Utah State just kept making shots. I mean, and God, I would have loved Utah State to win that game. I'm just a Utah State casual just watching because I mean their atmosphere is so awesome and I just love that team.
So fun to watch.
So fun to watch. High Point, man, unbelievable comeback. That unbelievable three by 99 at half court. I just started all the momentum. Able to
Johnson.
And that was just typical, Wisconsin in March, just losing to the 12 seed. But High Point, I think, earned that one. And then Arkansas, man, just looked so dominant against Hawaii. And then looked dominant again in my mind against High Point, despite again, High Point could shoot the three at a prolific rate. We knew the score was going to be somewhat tight. But, man, just Arkansas is so physical. And Darius Acuff, man, has become, honestly, my favorite player, outside of a UH player. In this whole tournament, I think he's really shown himself as a top 5 future NBA player. So out of this top half of the West, boys, what'd y'all take away, Luke and Chase?
Yeah, I want to start with Arkansas. That was extremely worrying in that High Point game. I get that High Point can score, but
when Arkansas scores 94 points, though, I mean, it's just High Point was just making shots this March.
No, I don't think that's completely true. They were making shots, yes, but I'm going to say just Acuff because that's the only guard. No, we're going to go with Wagner. Well, Wagner's up there, and the dude, all the guard for High Point has to do is cross over and go around him and get a layup. That's a huge issue. High Point, all of their second half points where they were kind of battling back and forth were layups at the rim that were relatively uncontested. Yes, they hit some tough shots.
Yeah, three. Yeah, bringing it back in memory. Three was dicing them up in the floor.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that is a huge issue for Arkansas because they got eaten alive in the pick and roll. And I mean, it's just that's a big worry for me with because I do have them in my Final Four, my bracket, but that is a big worry for me is that level of defense that they play because you do have to play some form of defense in March.
Chase, what did you take away from the top half?
Well, first off, Arizona dominated LIU like we expected, but Utah State is another team that we felt like should have been seated a lot higher, and
showed that.
Regardless of them being a 9 seed, that's not a 9 seed in my mind, and I honestly thought they gave Arizona a hell of a game, and Arizona just proved to me again why they've been elite all season, why they're so good. I really like Braden Burries a lot for them. He's played really well down the stretch. Koa Pete started the year off really hot for them, but I think Burries has really taken this team over as his. But Utah State put up a really good fight, and really, honestly, is another one that we can talk about. Just like Siena got really hoed by the seeding this year. I have a couple beef with the committee with just how they seeded some of these teams because Utah State should have been a 7 French 6 in my mind. I mean, they dominated the Mountain West this year, and I mean this was a really good Utah State team. So great season for them. Got a big, they got a good win over Villanova, but just ultimately came up short against Arizona. And then Arkansas, I agree. Arkansas has scored the ball really well. I think they looked like the best offensive team in the tournament. But man, I agree with you, Luke. That defense scares me. It just at times is too easy. Like they got up on Hawaii really early in that first round game, and they just gave up so many points down the stretch. And going into halftime, it was like, so many wide open threes to a good shooting Hawaii team. Coach Cal has drilled them on that. So, I mean, Acuff and Wagner, in their own right, are phenomenal offensive players. There's no doubt about it. And this is a phenomenal offensive Arkansas team, but their defensive end does worry me a little bit. And then shout out to High Point. High Point is, honestly, I didn't know much about the university. Have learned a lot about it over the last 2 weeks. That is a phenomenal school. I mean, holy cow, it is awesome.
And their pockets are deep. People don't get this twisted. I mean, their pockets are deep. They have a very healthy NIL budget for a mid-major.
Yeah, I'm hearing $4 to $6 million in NIL for a mid-major, which is absolutely insane. But they put up a really good fight. Chase Johnson, one of the coolest stories of March, is another guy that'll go down in the March Madness lore. I mean, I thought they put up a really good fight against Arkansas. Obviously, pulled a really cool upset on Wisconsin. Wisconsin had that game won, and typical Wisconsin fashion choked it away. I really like this Arizona-Arkansas matchup, though. I think it's going to be really fun.
Bottom half of the bracket, Texas, man. They beat BYU. This is a Texas team coming off a first four win that Chase didn't believe in, but then put it in his bracket. But on air, he said he didn't believe in them, so I'm sticking with that. I mean, BYU was just AJ DeBanson. That was it. I mean, they just had nothing else going for them, and Texas took advantage of that. And their big man, who took care of Gonzaga. And this is just, I love my Gonzaga basketball. Good Catholic school up there. Shout out the Catholics, but it wasn't their year. And Texas took advantage of that, and they were able to bully them on the inside, and Gonzaga just couldn't score from the perimeter. Miami beat Missouri. As I expected, they were just way more athletic than Missouri. It was just a bad matchup. Missouri could have made a Sweet 16 run with the right bracket set. It just was a bad matchup for them, and they were just way more athletic. Purdue, I mean, just absolutely blew out Queens, and then was able to pull away from Miami at the end, giving us a Texas Purdue Sweet 16. Quick, guys, just what you take away from the bottom half of this bracket, and anything that stood out to y'all, Luke and Chase?
Yeah, Texas, because Gonzaga, they only had EK this year. I thought they were probably the worst 3 seed. I think they probably should have been more like a 4, just because, I mean, the West Coast really let down this year in terms of March, and I think it was just kind of the namesake, which I think they both got wins over Gonzaga.
I mean, Gonzaga only had 3 losses, so let's not poo-poo on them too much. But
yes, but I mean, they did not beat the usually quality, because usually they play at Kentucky or
a decent non-conference. I think Huff getting hurt in the non-conference really hurt them.
But they usually play like Kentucky in the middle of the season.
Yeah,
it's where you that non-con in between the conference, which you can kind of gauge where they are.
We didn't have that gauge this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that was a little more struggle with Gonzaga, because they got used to playing very much inferior competition. But I mean, Texas has looked good. That offense is really good, and the 7-footer.
Shout out to Weaver also. Shout out to Weaver, dude. The albino guy. He is tough. He is
Weaver's
tough.
really good.
But Jokic is probably the best big man I've ever seen in my life. He's got the worst footwork, but he finishes around the rim, so you can't hate on it. But Texas, maybe they'll be able to get another win versus Purdue this weekend. I don't know.
Chase, what did you take away? Actually, I'll just ask this one question. How do you feel about the Horns?
Well, first off, I want to say that coming into the tournament, this is a Texas team that had lost 6 out of their last 7 going into the tournament. Looked absolutely dead in the water. And so obviously we filmed before the first 4 occurred, so didn't know how they're going to show up. But I knew that a team out of that NC State Texas matchup was going to make a run, just because it was a favorable draw for them, and always an 11 seed makes it to the Sweet 16.
So what you're really saying to me is your bracket really had NC State going to the Sweet 16, but it's just happened to be Texas. Okay, I just wanted you to admit that
until I watched Texas play NC State, and that's when I filled out y'all's bracket, and I was like, this Texas team actually looks like they're functioning and playing really well. I mean, the beautiful thing about Texas is they have 3 or 4 guys that can get 10+ points. Weaver's a dog. Vogatitis has been great. Swaim's been good. Mark Pope has been really good too. So that's 4 really talented guys. Sean Miller has done his thing, and I just want to say one thing about Texas, and this will make everybody feel really good, is Texas now this season, everybody's been so high on Bucky Ball at Texas A&M, all this Texas A&M stuff, all the propaganda. Texas in the first year of Sean Miller has equaled the best season by Texas A&M basketball in their history.
You gotta love it.
So
screw the cold.
Gotta love it. As a Texas fan, gotta love it. Purdue's a tough draw. Purdue's looked really good over the last couple weeks. Obviously dominated Queens, pulled away from Miami, but I do think Texas matches up well with them. So I think people are sleeping again on this Texas team. I don't know if they necessarily beat Purdue, but they'll keep it close.
Now pivoting over to the Midwest, I think all we have to say here is Michigan. Especially for this top half of the bracket. St. Louis had a good run. They just were no match.
Yep.
Bama, though, I mean, I guess actually my question for the top half, we know what Michigan has, and they have shown it. There has been no question right now in my mind about Michigan. Bama's hot. And, I mean, they're, dangerously hot. So, I'm going to actually avoid asking Luke any questions about the top half of this bracket. So I'm going to write to Chase. What do you think about this Bama team?
Well, I think that they were the biggest candidate for an upset from all the 4 versus 13s.
100%. 100%.
And they played really well against Hofstra. Texas Tech, in their own right, played well against Akron, but we saw what Tech has been struggling with. were too reliant on Christian Anderson down the stretch, and Bama dominated them. The thing that surprised me about Bama is that they played really good defense, and they shot the lights out of the ball against Texas Tech and absolutely dominated them from the opening tip all the way to the end of the game. So, I mean, I'm really impressed with this Nate Oates team. And you know what's crazy about that Tech game is that LeBaron Fallon didn't even have that good of a game, and they smoked Tech. So this Alabama team's hot. They have a bunch of different guys that can score the ball, which is clear. Michigan obviously has looked great. They dominated a St. Louis team that could have given them a run for their money and just blew them out of the water. So I think this is going to be a really fun matchup. Obviously, you got to like Michigan's odds, but man, Alabama is really hot.
And Luke, we'll get your opinion when you break down the bracket on the next slides.
I know.
Yeah,
I know he's got some
I can see him chomping on the bed here. He's
foaming at
ready
the
to talk
mouth.
some big blue basketball, and you got to give it to the dude. It's a #1 overall seed, and
They're looking good.
they look so good. They're so scary. Tennessee, man, they took care of Miami, Ohio. It was a good run for Miami, Ohio this year. They belong in the tournament. I don't care what anybody says. Virginia took care of Wright State barely, and then they kind of showed against Tennessee when they just were unable to score in any clutch situation there in the last 5 minutes. And then Kentucky, man, Santa Clara got hoed by the no timeout call. Kentucky able to win in overtime. And then they go out there and get their ass smacked by an Iowa State team that is looking damn good. They look damn good against Tennessee State, and they look damn good against Kentucky. Bottom half of the bracket, Luke, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, Tennessee, I think I'm not going to say they got lucky. They got very favorable.
They got a great
Virginia
draw.
team
Great draw.
because
Great draw.
they got the Tony Bennett Virginia team for some reason, not the Ryan Odom Virginia team we saw in the regular season. The Virginia team we saw in the regular season scored the ball at will, shot the ball well. I mean, this Virginia team looked abysmal on offense. But, it's good for Tennessee. I want to say one thing, though. I don't know how you're Bruce Pearl. You can root for Tennessee when you got fired from Tennessee and then coached at Auburn. That really does not make sense to me. They're in the same conference. It's not like
He's an SEC homer, though.
He's just
so.
he just being an SEC guy.
But I just don't get it. It kind of pisses me off.
No, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Bruce Pearl pissed me off too. Case,
mean-
what did you think about the bottom half?
Completely different.
Well-
mid-major to that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. Screw Bruce Pearl.
Yeah.
Well, I will say for the bottom half of the bracket, Tennessee kind of has surprised me a lot. This Rick Barnes-led team, I was not overly impressed with, especially in the SEC tournament and all throughout SEC play. I didn't think that this Tennessee team would be making a Sweet 16 run, but like you guys said, really favorable draw for them. Virginia, I thought was going to be the team to come out of that section of the bracket, especially with how well they played Duke. But, I mean, they looked awful against Wright State and looked even worse against Tennessee. So I guess you got to give Tennessee credit for beating a team not playing at their best. But Iowa State has looked, even though they're banged up, they have looked every freaking part of the team that I saw in the Big 12 tournament and throughout the regular season. This Iowa State team is damn good. Osterberger, whatever his name is a phenomenal coach. I really like what he's done putting that roster together. They are so deep too. That's the beautiful thing about this Iowa State team is they're really deep, and I mean I am really impressed with what they've done so far in the tournament.
Out of the South, Florida had the worst, beat Prairie View A&M in the biggest defeat in NCAA tournament history. It was something to behold.
You see what the
for sure.
PV coach said?
Yeah, they needed Jesus.
Yeah.
And Iowa took care of Clemson, and then, man, Iowa shocked the world and beat Florida, and Florida just could not come up in the clutch at all. I don't know what the hell happened. That last play there by Xavier Lee has literally caused them to enter the transfer portal. But Iowa moves on to Sweet 16. Vandy takes care of McNeese, and then the shot was in against Nebraska, man. It rimmed in and out. Sending Nebraska to Sweet 16, who absolutely took Troy on a leash and walked him for 5 miles, dog walked, spanked him, whooped him on the ass. It was the most disappointed I've ever been as a Troy alumni fan to this day. I thought we came out completely flat. After getting up, we just kept leaving 22 wide ass open the entire game. To where the point I'm texting Chase, hey, can you yell at the team to quit leaving 22 wide ass open, please?
21.
21. Yeah, whatever.
21.
They're all cold as shit at shooting the 3 ball. So we have a Big Ten matchup in Iowa, Nebraska in the Sweet 16. VCU beat North Carolina, which was incredible because Hubert Davis is now fired as of like 10 minutes ago. Screw Hubert Davis, screw North Carolina, and A-10 on top, dude. We love the A-10 over here on the Swiss Army. Illinois took care of Penn, and then Illinois, man, VCU made another push towards the end of that game, and Illinois was able to get out of it on top. Texas A&M looked good against St. Mary's, or St. Mary's looked abysmal. I couldn't tell really which one. And then Houston just absolutely dog walked. As I said, Nebraska did to Troy, but Houston did it to back-to-back opponents in Idaho and Texas A&M. Absolutely took them for a walk, a stroll, spanked them on the ass multiple times. I mean, it was just absolute obliteration by Kelvin Sampson's Cougars, who look effing unbelievable going into the Sweet 16 in March. South region as a whole, I felt like it was not as interesting as the other regions in terms of the results to lump it all into one region. So take away from the South region, Luke, then Chase.
Yeah, I knew the pace for Iowa was definitely going to give Florida issues. Did not think they were going to lose, though. I mean, on that last,
they got down in that pace, man. They just.
And that's kind of what happened last year when Drake played Missouri. We saw Drake kind of get up and the pace just kills you. And I want to give a shout out to Iowa. They rebounded so well. I mean, they kept them off the glass. Then another thing, Boogie Flan, what are you doing? Don't go for the steal. Cut the dude off and make him change direction. Ben Sturts had not played that well. And if he would have made him change direction to take three, I think that would have fared better for Florida. And then I think game of the tournament is Nebraska, Vandy. That game was awesome. So worth staying up for. And then you got Price Sandford, number 21 for Nebraska. His whole family played at Iowa. He's got like 2 or 3 other brothers that I think went to Iowa and played. He was at Iowa last year. This is the battle of the Midwest. Do they have enough Busch Light in Houston? We will find out this weekend. But yeah, Illinois just kind of rolled, and it's going to be very interesting here to get offense versus defense with Illinois-Houston, so it should be a good game.
Chase, what'd you take away from the South?
Starting off, Florida smoked PV. That was atrocious, but Florida-Iowa is the game that everybody's going to talk about because that's the biggest upset so far this tournament, I would say, for the most part. Florida, I don't know why I know Todd Golden came out and said that their plan was to foul. I have no idea why they didn't commit a foul in that situation. Or, like Luke said, at least make Bennett Sturts take the shot. But in all honesty, we got to give Ben McCollum a lot of props. This is an elite coach, was elite last year at Drake, is absolutely elite at Iowa. Big-time program should go get after him. I think North Carolina should maybe look and try to get this guy because he's an elite coach and he's a program builder, and he's done a phenomenal job at Iowa. Obviously, I was there in person, boots on the ground for Nebraska versus Troy. Super cool experience, kind of like how, Will.
Yeah, they kind of like the Oilers Stars game went for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how it felt. I mean, I'm second row back. Like I was damn near courtside, right across from the Nebraska student section. So, we're feeling good through the first 10 minutes. And I mean, I thought we actually came out on fire and played really good. Our defense, we were hitting shots. Victor Valdez hit a couple threes. We're feeling good. We're flipping off the Nebraska student section. And then they started running a bunch of actions at Victor. And I mean, it was just awful. I mean, we were leaving Price Sanford open. I think he hit 7 threes in the first half. And after that, after you get down by so much, these games are over. So it was a tough way, for my uncle's last game at Troy, but also very proud of them that they made it to that point, but definitely very disappointing. Then Vandy, Nebraska was the game of the tournament, in my opinion, so far. I mean, absolute banger of a game. I thought that Vandy shot was in and out, absolutely devastating, but phenomenal game. This Nebraska team is damn good, and it'll be a really fun matchup between Nebraska and Iowa. And then Illinois has rolled through a pretty easy path. VCU got the big upset over North Carolina, with we saw Hubert Davis getting fired, and then Houston has looked unbelievable. They look like the most dominant team in the tournament so far. I mean, they have dominated both Idaho and Texas A&M. Like, it wasn't even close in either game. There's just a vibe around this Houston team. It just feels different. I know that the regular season, I know we probably hadn't bought into Houston as much as we should have, but this is a really good Houston team. I mean, they have everything that you're looking for in a championship level team. I mean, you have veterans that have been there and done that. You have the young stars. Like, this is a really, really well constructed Kelvin Sampson roster, and this is maybe one of his final runs at it. And I just feel really strongly, especially now with Florida out of this region, that Houston can make a run. But overall, I mean, I think Houston, Illinois will be a great game as well, but definitely looking forward to the South region.
I could reset. We give our Sweet 16 picks. I like St. John's defense over Duke's offense. Duke has done very little to impress me so far this tournament, and I think Zuby Ejiofor should be able to shut down Boozer, as Luke said. Also, dude, I love Patino, so I'm going to pick St. John's over Duke. Michigan State, UConn is such a toss-up. I flipped back and forth on this one. I'm pretty sure I typed both their names in at some point. I'm going to go with Michigan State. I think they just look slightly better. I mean, I think we've had to have huge explosions from both Caravan and Terrace Reed. And I just don't know if Michigan State's going to allow that to happen as UCLA and Furman did. So I've got the Spartans going on, and I've got St. John's taking down Sparty in the Elite Eight. I think this is a St. John's team that's destined to make a Final Four run. And also, who wants a one seed in the Final Four if you're looking on YouTube? Because I've got Arkansas beating Arizona. I think this is Darius Acuff's cementation game. Pause. Like, he cements his legacy. He cements. Yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You probably didn't know what I mean.
Pronounce it.
He cements his legacy as a March Madness, legend here in this game as he takes down Arizona. I think this offense is enough to get past Arizona. And then I think Purdue takes care of Texas. Leading up to an Arkansas-Purdue matchup, which I love Arkansas in this matchup. I think this is a complete mismatch. I mean, they're just going to out-athlete them up and down the court. And I don't think Purdue's going to have anything to stop it, especially. I think now this Arkansas run absolutely, I think, depends on one person. It is not Darius Acuff. It's not Wagner. It's how is Trevin Brazil going to play down the stretch. And if he has a good game in both Arizona and Purdue, I think this is a very realistic thing that Arkansas does go to the Final Four, as I had in before the tournament anyway. I think Michigan takes care of Bama. Barely. I think I actually had Bama put in here. I just realized I couldn't have every single non-1 seed not going to the Elite Eight. I probably will bet on Bama. I just, for some reason, Michigan just has this ability to like flip a switch. And when the switch gets flipped, they keep running like awesome offensive sets through the big man, and they can score 15 just like that. And I feel like that will at some point happen in this Bama game. They will move on to the Elite Eight, where they will face Iowa State, who I think absolutely blows Tennessee out of the water. And then I think Iowa State is just, I mean, there's something about this Iowa State team that has clicked for me watching them so far this year. And I think they're going to make the run to the Final Four, where they will face Arkansas. I've got Houston beating Illinois. I think defense better than offense, especially in tournament play. I think they've got way more veteran leadership over on the Cougar side, and I think their ability to score has been shown throughout the tournament, and I think they'll continue to do it against the Fighting Illini. I've got Nebraska beating Iowa in the Battle of the Corn. I think Nebraska has just been red hot from outside the arc, and that won't stop here, but it stops against Houston as Houston meets St. John's in the Final Four, where I've got Houston moving on to the national championship game against Arkansas, and I've got the Cougars winning it all. Luke, how do you see it?
Start out in the East. I got St. John's beating Duke. I just think defense are finally going to run into a defensive team, and I think Duke's luck will run out. Now, the only way Duke wins is if it's 5v8, so we'll have to be on the lookout for that. Then I got Michigan State beating UConn. I don't trust this UConn team. I don't trust this Michigan State team. I kind of think this is the consolation prize in the East. I think whoever wins the Duke game is going to end up going to the Final Four, which is why I have St. John's coming out of the East region. In the West, I have Arizona beating Arkansas. If High Point is going to score 80-something on them, Arizona might score 100. I think Arizona, if Arkansas is going to play defense like that, because I originally had this in my bracket as Arkansas, but that Arkansas defense just worries me way too much. So I'm going to have Arkansas or get beat by Arizona. And then I'm going to have Purdue beat Texas. I think the run's going to kind of end. I think these seniors that Purdue's had for the last 4 years are kind of poised to at least get to the Elite Eight and face Arizona, where I think they will ultimately lose. Then I've got Iowa beating Nebraska. I think this is going to be kind of the Cinderella of this year. Ben McCollum is going to kind of instill himself as a top 10 coach in the country, which I've been on Iowa Twitter all of Monday and today, and I love this guy. I knew I loved this guy, but when he's basically calling Florida soft in the post-game presser, that's awesome. Then all y'all picked Houston, so I was going to do something different. So I'm going to go with Illinois. I'm gonna go with the.
Wish I picked Bama now, motherfucker. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. I'm gonna go with the offense because Illinois is very good. It's just really gonna depend on. I just trust Illinois' ability to score more than Houston, and I just think Houston might have one drought that kind of kills them in this game. Then over in the Midwest, I've got Iowa State just thumping Tennessee unless Gillespie goes insane. I don't see Tennessee really being able to win this. Then I got Michigan beating Bama. I'm really worried about this game because
You should be.
yeah, I think I'm not trying to say they're St. Louis, but it's kind of what St. Louis did to Georgia. The same game. They shoot the ball very well. They're way more athletic than St. Louis is, but like they shoot the ball very well. I think Michigan's gonna have to establish it inside and then do what they did against St. Louis. Establish inside, kick it out, hit some threes, and they're gonna have to play some defense, which I think they can do. I don't really think Bama's gonna shoot that well again. It's just like Texas Tech, what they did against Akron. I don't think they didn't do it twice. I don't think Bama's going to be able to do it twice. Then I got Michigan versus Iowa State. I think the injury for Iowa State with Jefferson being out, I don't know if he's going to play this weekend. I think that's finally going to catch up. That's 20 points almost out of your lineup. I think it's going to catch up to Iowa State, and Michigan's going to go on to the Final Four. I got St. John's beating Illinois because I'm not having a Big Ten final. So I got St. John's in the final, who will play Michigan. Now I want to throw a little fact out here. Last 10 years, the only national champions are Big East teams or 1 seeds. Every non-Big East team that has won has been a 1. And the Big East teams have been like 2, 4s, and all that stuff. So it's going to either be a 1 seed or a Big East team that wins this year. And I think Michigan's going to get it done. I'm definitely home in a little bit, but they will be my national champion.
Jace.
Well, this is exactly how I have it set up outside of the Nebraska pick. This is exactly how I have it in my bracket. So I'm still very poised to continue to make a big run here. So I'm homing a little bit off my bracket. Things definitely have changed. Obviously, I'm not as high on Duke as I was when I made my bracket. But I got home a little bit. I got Duke in the Final Four. So I do think Duke beats St. John's. They're going to get a little lucky with the officiating. Patino's going to get hoed. St. John's is going to go a little cold, and Duke is going to take advantage, and Cam Boozer is going to have a big game. Caden Boozer is going to have a big game too, and they're going to get past St. John's. I see it the same way you do too, Luke. I think this other game, this UConn-Michigan State game, is kind of consolation. Whoever wins the Duke-St. John's game is making it to the Final Four. So I think Michigan State does ultimately beat UConn, but I think Duke beats Michigan State. And then in the South, I love this Nebraska-Iowa matchup, but this Nebraska team they're the story of the tournament, not winning a tournament game at all, and now potentially making an Elite Eight run. I like them to beat Iowa. I don't think Bennett Sturts has played well enough for Iowa to really, impress me. And I think, Nebraska has looked great on the inside, and they've shot it really well. And I love Bryce Sanford a lot, and he's going to want to beat his old school. So I think this matchup is going to be very interesting. But Nebraska fans travel. I know that for a fact, and they're going to be out there in Houston. They're going to make it feel like a home game, so it's going to be real tough for Iowa to win that one. And then Houston versus Illinois, I think this game is going to be super tight, but Houston has the home court advantage. They're 3 miles. Their campus is 3 miles away from Toyota Center in Houston. Obviously Illinois is coming from almost 2,000 miles away, so that is a trek and a half to get down here for that. So Houston's going to have the home court advantage. Then Nebraska's just not going to have enough to beat this Houston team. So I've got Houston going to the Final Four. In the West, I actually have Arizona pulling out a game against Arkansas. I think this Arkansas team has been fantastic in the tournament, but they don't play good enough defense. And this Arizona team, we've counted them out a lot this year. I mean, but if you look at their non-conference schedule, if you look at who they beat in conference, they have beaten so many good teams. They're so battle tested. They are so elite. This Tommy Lloyd team is really freaking good. So, I've got Arizona beating Arkansas in a really close one. And then I probably would pick Texas here because I feel like a lot of people are doubting them. They didn't even make it on the odds graphic to win the national championship. So I think that you would have to pick Texas in this situation. But in my bracket, I had Purdue beating them. So I'm going to go with Purdue here, even though I think Purdue's done fine, but they got a pretty easy draw with Queens and Miami. So I think Texas is going to keep it close, and I think they have the ability to beat Purdue because they are a lot more athletic than them, but we'll see. And I think Arizona smokes Purdue. I think Arizona, if they get past Arkansas, the winner of the Arizona-Arkansas game will make it to the Final Four. So I've got Arizona coming out of the West. And then in the Midwest, this Michigan team is really freaking good. And I think that we're underrating them a little bit. Alabama, obviously has shot the ball really well, but even if they shoot it well, I still think this Michigan team can win. I've been very impressed with what they've done, but even more impressive is Iowa State. I think this Iowa State team has really been doing something special since the Big 12 tournament. They ran into a Houston team that was just a little bit more rested, but they still kept it close against a good Houston team, and they dominated a good Texas Tech team, blew out Arizona State. So I really like this Iowa State team, especially with what they've done in the tournament so far. So, I like Iowa State to smoke Tennessee, and then Michigan, Iowa State. I think this will be the game of the tournament. I think that, Jefferson probably will have to play for Iowa State, but the reports I've seen is that he's questionable, obviously, for the Tennessee game. But I think they're acting like he could make it back for the Elite Eight, for sure for the Final Four, but potentially for the Elite Eight. So I think if he comes back, regardless, I think this Osselberger team is going to beat Michigan, even though I hate to see it because I really like what Dusty May's done at Michigan. But I think Iowa State gets it done. And then that sets up a Final Four between Duke, Houston, Arizona, and Iowa State, which is my Final Four on the bracket. So I hope this happens. So I'm homing a little bit, and it probably won't turn out this way, but I think Houston is just going to be too much for Duke. This Duke team lost to Houston in the Final Four last year, and I think that Duke team was a lot better than this current Duke team. Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg are a lot better than Cam Boozer, Caden Boozer, and Isaiah Evans. And I think this Houston team objectively is better too. So I got Houston going to the national championship again. Arizona, Iowa State. We've seen this game play out a couple times this season. Think Arizona probably will get it done versus Iowa State. We saw them beat them in the Big 12 tournament, and they beat them in the regular season too. So I think Arizona will beat Iowa State. And then Arizona's just had Houston's number this year. So I've got a Big 12 championship in the Final Four, and I've got Arizona winning and finally getting it done.
Producer put his picks in. He has St. John's over Duke and Michigan State over UConn. St. John's advancing to the Final Four. He has Nebraska over Iowa, Houston over Illinois, and Houston advances to the Final Four, and eventually advancing to the national championship. Looking a lot like Chase here, but except he has Michigan in the Final Four against Arizona, with Purdue beating Texas and Iowa State beating Tennessee, respectively. He has a Houston zone final with Arizona winning it all. Women's March Madness looking. I just wanted to touch on this. UCLA skated by Oklahoma State, only won by 19, which is pretty embarrassing in terms of one seeds in the Women's March Madness. Minnesota won on a buzzer beater against Ole Miss. That was pretty electric. Duke took a barrel, and LSU absolutely blew out Texas Tech. Wasn't even close. The LSU team looks damn good. Texas also looks damn good. Blew out Oregon. Kentucky won a thriller on the road at West Virginia. Louisville beat Alabama in overtime. And then Michigan looks damn good as they throttled NC State. TCU won in overtime as well against Washington. Virginia, the 10 seed, making it to the Sweet 16. I believe this may be for the first time ever in Women's March Madness that a 10 seed has made it to the Sweet 16.
The Women's March Madness, this would be like a 16 seed or a 15 seed.
This is incredible. They beat Iowa, which was insane, on the road, and got it done. But I just want to touch on two teams here. South Carolina is unbelievable defensively, and UConn is unbelievable offensively. They are on a collision course for the Final Four against each other. I'm very excited to actually watch that because it's going to be offense versus defense, kind of like Houston and Illinois. And two great coaches with Don Sealy and Gino Arima. It's going to be fun to watch, but watch out for Notre Dame. They're a sneaky 6 seed. They could catch up on Vanderbilt, who also looks damn good. So it should be interesting, Sweet 16 for the women. As we now pivot to NASCAR Darlington, Corey Heim. It was Heim time in the Craftsman Truck Series. He's a part-time truck driver, full-time O'Reilly Series. He got it done at Darlington. Justin Allgaier notched his second win of the year at Darlington in the O'Reilly Series. And then Tyler Reddick is on a hell of a run. Shout out to my boy Carson Hocevar, though, coming in fourth. That's what I cared about. Ricky Downs Jr. did okay. But in the Cup Series, Tyler Reddick is on an unbelievable run. And shout out to 2311 Racing for getting another win at Darlington. Let's talk about the NHL playoffs. This is obviously, we have games going on as we record right now. Nashville's throttling San Jose. But in the Eastern Conference, as of this morning, the Buffalo Sabres led the Atlantic at 95 points, but with 2 games in hand and only 4 points behind. So essentially, if they win out, they're tied with those 2 games. Tampa Bay Lightning are in second at 91, and the Montreal Canadiens, 69 games played at 86. In the Metro, the Hurricanes pretty much got the 1 seed locked up. They're up 10 points on the second place Pittsburgh Penguins. at 96-86, and the Blue Jackets, man, have snuck in there on the Metro in the top 3. They're sitting at 85 points. Wild card, Boston Bruins suffered a bad loss to Toronto tonight. They're at 86 points. And the New York Islanders at 85, they're sticking around. In the hunt, though, the Detroit Red Wings are 1 point out of the wild card, 2 points out of the Ottawa Senators, 5 points out of the Philadelphia Flyers, and 6 points out are the Washington Capitals, goes for the Eastern Conference. As we move over to the West, the Colorado Avalanche have clinched the playoff spot. They are sitting at 102 points, but not out of reach of the second place in the Central. Dallas Stars, who have also clinched the playoff spot, are red hot, playing great hockey at 97 points. And don't sleep on the Minnesota Wild either, but they are probably not going to catch either Dallas or Colorado, sitting at 92 points through 71 games. Pacific is just a cluster F right now. The Anaheim Ducks are in first, though, with 1 game in hand on both the Golden Knights and Oilers at 82 points. The Golden Knights have 78. They face the Oilers this week, which would be a very intense matchup, as the Oilers sit in third at 77. Wild card, Mammoth, dude, have come on strong. This Utah Mammoth team is young, and they look great. They're at 80 points in the first wild card. And the Nashville Predators are they're going to be at 77 points through 71 games after a win tonight, and they are in the second wild card spot. 2 points behind are the LA Kings at 73. The Kraken are 4 points out. 5 points out of the San Jose Sharks, as are the Winnipeg Jets. And then 8 points out are the St. Louis Blues, and kind of on the edge of that hunt. However, they are 7-1-2 in their last 10, so don't count the Blues just yet, because they made that run late last year to get in the playoffs, and they could do it again. Will, what are you getting at here with all this NHL talk without having Chase or Luke pitch in it or anything? Well, that's because we're giving I got ahead of myself there. Here's a look at the NHL playoff odds. This is actually just kind of given for the boys. I don't know if they looked at it at all when they were doing these predictions. But if you're on YouTube, you can look. If you're not on YouTube, you're on Spotify, I'm sorry, they're like 40. No, that's an exaggeration. There's like 25 teams here. I'm not rattling off all their percentages. But here are, courtesy of MoneyPuck.com, the NHL playoff odds going into today. Again, why am I rambling, not letting anyone else talk? That's because they're going to have their chance as we go. Who makes the playoffs in the NHL? I will kick us off. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning will eventually take over that number 1 spot in the Atlantic Division. I think the Buffalo Sabres will drop to second. This is a red-hot Buffalo team that is playing really well down the stretch. Super young, super talented. Same goes for the Montreal Canadiens. I think they will hold on to a divisional spot in the third. And I believe the wild card, essentially the worst or the best of the 2 wild cards, would go on and play the Tampa Bay Lightning, who I think will be eventually behind the Carolina Hurricanes, who I think will be the number 1 overall seed in the West, in the Metropolitan Division. The 2 seed would be the Columbus Blue Jackets, the 3, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then the wild card, I think they're out right now. I think they're playing damn good. They do have a couple of injuries they just suffered, but I think it's a really resilient group behind Brady Tkachuk. And the goaltending has stepped up big for the Sens, and I think the Sens make another run at the playoffs and get in it at the wild card spot here in the East. In the West, I say chalk of the Central, Avs, Stars, Wild, 1, 2, 3. I think the Nashville Predators are going to make the playoffs. They are playing so well right now. They are moving the puck exquisitely, scoring at will almost. And UC Saros looks in playoff form. I think they will be the worst of the 2 wild cards, so they will have to go against this absolute just behemoth of an Avalanche team in the playoffs, which probably will not fare well for our hometown Nashville Predators, but at least they'll get in. In the Pacific, I think the Ducks are just going to kind of win the Pacific this year. I think they're going to kind of walk into it. I don't think the Oilers or Vegas or LA or San Jose is going to do anything to seriously threat. I think the Oilers get close. I think they'll be in second. I think Tristan Jarry's going to have a big game tonight. I really will have a better grasp of this watching this team play Utah, who is a wildcard team, tonight to see what they will do down the stretch after a little bit of a break. They have rattled off so many games in a row that they needed this little reset. I've got Vegas making it the third Pacific. It does kind of get hairy for these threes, though, in the Pacific because, San Jose or LA could go on a heater and jump in immediately. And then the best wildcard team, I think, will be the Utah Mammoth. They won't be able to catch Minnesota Wild, but they are miles ahead of Nashville, anyone chasing Nashville right now. So I think they will end up playing the Anaheim Ducks in the playoffs. So, Luke, with your limited puck knowledge, how'd you see it going?
Not even going to act like I know what I'm talking about for some of this here, but I know the Sabres are hot. I think they will be able to ride out the rest of the season, squeak out against the Lightning. Then I got the Canadiens, and then screw the Bruins. Kind of sold the parlay tonight. In the Western Central, I got the Avalanche, the Stars, and then the Wild, because aren't the Hughes on the Wild?
Yes.
Yes.
Quinn
So, Okay. Well, the golden goal, and then I'm going to put the Preds in the wild card. I kind of hope they go to the playoffs. I definitely want to go to a playoff game.
I told Luke if the Preds make it to the playoffs, we're going to make a trip up
I,
to Nashville.
I would definitely do that. I've never been to a hockey game. I would love to go to some playoff hockey. On the Pacific, I got the Ducks, the Knights, and then the Oilers coming in that third spot with the Mammoth coming in at the wild card. And the Metropolitan, I've got the Hurricanes, Penguins, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then I've got the Senators because in one of the Chucks on there.
Brady, yep.
Okay, yeah, that is why.
I love it. How about the West?
Shit, did I not read? I thought.
Oh, okay, maybe he did.
No, I read it completely out of order.
All right.
But I read them all.
Yeah, good. Chase, how do you see it? And you can actually spit some ball at us.
Okay, well, starting off, I think this Sabres team, I'm a little indifferent than you. I know the Lightning can catch them, but I think the Sabres team has played really well down the stretch. They're young, they're hungry. I think they actually go on to win this Atlantic Division. And I don't think the Lightning have played that well down the stretch, especially with Austin Matthews' injury. I think the Canadians wrap up that third spot. I think that all of these three teams in the Atlantic will finish 1, 2, 3, with the Devils falling out of there. But definitely was a tight race. But I think the three best teams in the division rose to the top. The Hurricanes have far and away clinched the Metropolitan. It gets a little hairy when you start looking at 2, 2, and 3, but I think the Penguins are good enough to clinch that second spot, and then it gets really interesting, really interesting. Hold on, let me pull it up. I had it pulled up right here. So the Blue Jackets right now are a point ahead. Like while we're filming, are a point ahead of the Penguins. The Bruins are tied with the Penguins right now. So any one of those three teams could jump in there. I would assume that Pittsburgh's going to figure it out. They haven't played the best in their last 10, but I think that they're the best team out of the Blue Jackets, Penguins, and Bruins. But I kind of like this Bruins team to make a push. But at the end of the day, I do think the Bruins will end up clinching that first wild card spot. And then I think that second wild card spot's going to be completely between the Senators and the Islanders. Unfortunately for the Red Wings, I just don't think that they're going to get in. They had a great season, but just down the stretch just haven't had enough. Ottawa's been playing some really good hockey, 8-2 in their last 10. Brady Tkachuk has been absolutely instrumental in that. And I do think that they are a team that could be pretty dangerous in the playoffs considering what they've done over the last couple of weeks. But I actually went different than you will because I think we all would have had the Senators get in. I got to give the Islanders.
I was flip flopping between the two of them.
Yeah, I got to give the Islanders some love. To be honest, we didn't expect this Islanders team to be any good at all this year, and in their own right, they've done a lot better than expected. I mean, I think we would have thought that the Rangers would have been the team to beat, coming out of New York, but the Islanders have looked good down the stretch, and I would just love it. Hockey is better when a New York team is in the playoffs, just MSG the vibes. So I have the Islanders actually getting in that final wild card spot, and then the West is so chalky. I mean, it's especially the Central. I think the Avs pretty much have the Central locked up due to the Stars. I mean, the Stars gave up 4 goals in the first period tonight. It's still going on, and they are coming back, but Ottinger gave up 4 goals to the Devils tonight in the first period and got pulled. So there's some issues going on there with the Stars, and I don't know if they necessarily catch the Avalanche with 11 games, 10 games left to go. Wild have looked great down the stretch too, I think, but I think these three teams all stay 1, 2, and 3. Then in the Pacific, I agree with you. I think Anaheim holds on to that first spot. I'm actually going to go a little bit different. This is only because of the Leon Draisaitl injury. I think the Vegas Knights clinched that second spot, and the Oilers clinched the third spot. I flip-flop back and forth between the Golden Knights and the Oilers, but I do think with, the second best player on the Oilers and a tremendous, accounts for a lot of their offensive production.
Hurts. And Trip Frederick's out too, so we're banged up.
Definitely banged up. That's what I'm saying. The injuries to the Oilers have been pretty unfair, but I do still think they finished top 3 in the Pacific, but I think the Golden Knights finished in second. The Mammoth are going to lock up the wild card spot easily. They're not going to catch the Wild, but they're going to lock up the first wild card spot. And I think the Preds will ultimately get it done. They've been playing really good hockey, similar to the Senators, where they're making the push at the right time, getting hot at the right time to potentially make the playoffs. But it's going to be very interesting over these last couple weeks. I think we got 3 weeks left, so a lot of really fun, intense hockey leading into the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, it's absolutely a playoff hockey appetizer for these next 3 weeks. Some of these teams are battling, jockeying for position in the playoffs. A different kind of playoff comes in soccer, though. We have the Intercontinental playoffs. This first matchup between Jamaica and New Caledonia, I think, is pretty straightforward. Jamaica's 70th in the world, and New Caledonia is 150th. I think Jamaica wins this one easily, like 3 or 4-0. And then Jamaica's got an interesting draw against the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Is actually 48th in the world, a little bit underrated. But I think you've played a game. You've kind of gotten in the groove that you're going into this Intercontinental playoff. And I think I love the speed of this Jamaica team, especially up front. They looked good in the Gold Cup. And I think I'm a little biased towards the CONCACAF teams. So I think Jamaica gets through and makes for an unbelievable atmosphere at some of these games in the United States for the Reggae Boys coming out of the Intercontinental playoffs. Then we pivot to the other side, which I think is a lot more enticing in terms of type matchups. I think this is a very close game between Bolivia and Suriname, but Bolivia, while ranked higher than Suriname in the FIFA World Cup rankings, Suriname has been in much better form, drawing against tough opponents, beating El Salvador. Bolivia has lost 6 straight. So I'm going to go with Suriname here to pull off the upset, but eventually get just absolutely, either of these teams get smoked by Egypt, as Egypt will then qualify as the second team in the Intercontinental playoffs. Luke, how do you see it going?
So I basically picked based off flags that I actually knew. So I got Jamaica winning both of their games. Obvious reasons, the only flag I know there. And then I have Egypt, who will end up playing. Who's that? Hold on.
Bolivia.
I think Bolivia will end up winning that match and playing Egypt, and I think Egypt will end up winning.
Chase.
I do want to say something. I hate doing this, but it is Iraq. Egypt already made the tournament.
Is it actually
so
Iraq?
It's Iraq.
Yeah, it's
That's
Iraq.
the whole reason I picked it.
All right, so
Iraq's
God.
good though. Iraq
is
That's
good,
still a
and
pick.
I feel embarrassed now because this is so small on my screen.
You had it.
I did.
It's tiny. It's tiny. You just can't
It
see
does
the
say
little
Iraq.
Arabic right.
Oh my-
in it. I'll explain it here. So first off, I really like this Jamaican team a lot.
Why did I think
they
Egypt didn't
obviously, like
qualify?
you said. What'd you say? I have no idea either. I really don't. They didn't have a good qualifying campaign.
Maybe that's
This
what
is
it
still a
was.
really good.
I am so sorry, Swiss Army Nation.
This Jamaican
I just
team,
got
though, they should make it
exposed.
into the tournament.
I won
New
the geography.
Caledonia. What'd you say?
I said I won the geography being middle school. This is embarrassing. This is an all-time low for me.
I came in third in that.
That's actually a shocker. Chase, spit it out to us though. The Reggae Boys, man, are poised for a run here. No.
Oh, 100%. I think that they handle New Caledonia pretty easy, but this one's a tricky one because always these playoff games are definitely tricky. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is actually a sneaky good soccer team. Jamaica, on form and on paper, should win, but it's a really enticing matchup. I think this game could go either way. I would like to see Jamaica win just for the vibes. Andre Blank's a good keeper, and then they have Leon Bailey, who's an absolutely electric forward for Aston Villa. Really, they should get it done. Should. I'd be really surprised, but again, Jamaica really did struggle in qualifying, so to put them in the playoff, you would have thought Jamaica would have been a shoo-in with, the United States and Mexico and Canada all are automatically qualifying from the CONCACAF pathway to get into this tournament. But I think Jamaica gets in path 1, and then path 2. Bolivia Suriname is a very enticing tie. I agree. Suriname is they are on a lot better form than Bolivia, and so the only reason Bolivia is here, and you guys probably don't know this, but Bolivia plays 1.5 miles above sea level.
Wow.
And so anytime that any teams go and play them at home, because the way that CONMEBOL sets up their qualifying is they do it in a big group format where every team plays everybody in the federation home and away. So Bolivia won all their home games for the most part and lost every single away game to put them in the spot where they could get here. This game is at a neutral site. It is not in Bolivia. Bolivia is going to lose to Suriname, and I think Iraq will dominate Suriname because they are the best team from this pathway.
100%. Now we really get into what I am so excited for because UEFA football is a step above everyone else, even in these playoffs. Um, and I love literally every single one of these fixtures, except a couple. I think a couple are pretty chalk, especially this first one, at least in my mind. I think Italy takes care of Northern Ireland very handily. And then on the other side of Pathway A, I think Wales is able to get past Bosnia and Herzegovina pretty easily, setting up an absolute banger of a Path A final between Italy and Wales. And I think the Italians finally get their redemption and get back in to the World Cup. Over to Pathway B. The real game in this entire scenario for me is Ukraine Sweden. I think these are two very even teams on paper. I think Sweden looked great in UEFA qualifying, though, a little bit better in Ukraine. I think they move on to face, again, I'm Polish, guys. I'm picking Poland to go through. This is probably Robert Lewandowski's last go. So I'm going to give Poland the win in Path B. Szczesny is unbelievable in goal. He's going to make some great saves against Sweden, and he's going to put the Polacks through to the World Cup. Path C, though, is a different animal for a different reason, and I think Chase probably knows why. I think there are some sneaky teams in here that on paper, if you watch a lot of soccer in the past, that you wouldn't pay attention to, like Kosovo and Romania. I think this Turkey team, though, is by and far better than Romania. I do think Romania could sneak up on them, but Turkey, we got to remember back in the Euros, looked unbelievable and was a surprise teams in the UEFA Euros. I think they get past Romania. Slovakia against Kosovo is a little bit trickier. I do think Slovakia is good enough, even though it's supposed to rain in this game, that can create all sorts of different, predicaments for either side. So I think we'll end up getting a Turkey-Slovakia Path C final where Turkey will be the team that qualifies. I mean, it's the 25th best team in the world, guys. I think Turkey is going to be able to take care of business in Path C. Path D is where the chaos happens. All right, we've got North Macedonia, who made an unbelievable run, if y'all remember, back 2 Euros ago against Denmark. Man, I'm not picking against Denmark. 21st team in the world. Ericsson, I mean, it's Denmark. Denmark's going to take care of North Macedonia. But the banger of the entire first round is Ireland and Czechia. 43 versus 59. These Irish faithful are so due to get through, and I think it's going to happen this year, and I think they're going to upset Denmark and qualify for the World Cup to make another electric fan base come over to the United States, because you got to know, if Ireland makes the World Cup, they will come over here in droves to support their Irish football team, and I believe they will get it done in Path D. Luke, some expert analysis, I'm sure, here from you. How do you see it?
Yes, so Italy is going to end up, is that Georgia? They're going to end up beating
Northern Ireland.
Northern
all right.
Ireland.
All right, see.
Hey, close though.
Close enough.
It-
Close enough. That's
looks
close.
like the Georgia flag. All right. Then I got Wales winning their game, where ultimately Italy will end up advancing for Path A. I've got Sweden, who will end up playing Poland, and then the Swedes will end up getting Path B. I've got Turkey to face Slovakia, and then Slovakia to ultimately go from Path C. And then I am going with Denmark to end up playing Ireland, and I think that Denmark is going to end up coming from Path D.
I love it. I love it. He's just,
And my soccer picks are on.
which, by the way,
I
Luke is kind of dead on his soccer picks.
for
So,
no reason.
Chase, tell us how it's going to go.
Well, this is how it should go. And with soccer, it never shakes out this way. So I want to preface that. But Italy, Northern Ireland is actually a pretty interesting draw. Italy on paper is the most talented team in all of these playoffs, any pathway. I mean, they're loaded with Sandro Tonali and Calafiore, just guys that are playing in the Premier League right now, top of their game. Chiesa, I mean, they're absolutely loaded, and one of the best goalkeepers in the world with Donnarumma. But Northern Ireland pros is a pretty tricky task, but I think that they will beat Northern Ireland. It would be a super big embarrassment for Italy to miss 2 World Cups in a row. And then I got Wales getting past Bosnia. Wales just has a little bit too much, especially with Dan James leading them, but I do ultimately think Italy gets past Wales and gets back in the World Cup. Then Path B is a really enticing one, because I think Ukraine-Sweden should be a really good game, but the only problem with this one is Ukraine's gone through so much politically, over the last 2 years, that they've had couple of their players in and out of the military. It's just been a really tough time. So they're going to have the emotions backing them. But this Sweden team shouldn't have even been in the playoff. They're absolutely loaded. I know Victor Gyökeres is going to make a difference. You know, he starts for Arsenal. I don't know if Isak will be back in time. I know he's pushing back to get back for these games, but this Sweden team on paper should beat Ukraine. And then Poland Albania is going to be a very enticing tie. I would have probably picked Poland to come out of this pathway if Lewandowski was on the top of his game, because Szczesny has been phenomenal for Barcelona. But fortunately, Lewandowski's been in and out of the training room, suffered a couple injuries this season, and just really struggled to find elite form like we've seen in the past, where he's really carried this Poland team. So I do think Sweden will get by and get back into the World Cup. And looking at Path C, this one means a lot for us because the U.S. is going to play one of these teams. Obviously, I would love to see some upsets happen here.
Oh,
I
100%.
would love Romania. I would love Romania to beat Turkey because this Turkish team is absolutely loaded. Arda Güler is a baller. They have a really good roster, and they did beat us in friendlies. And I know their friendlies, they don't matter as much, but Turkey was the last team to beat the United States, in the last, year or so. So definitely watch out for Turkey. I do think they get it done against Romania. Slovakia is actually a tricky team because they do have a really good goalkeeper in Jan Oblak. Thomas Suchek is really good too for them, and I do think they get by Kosovo pretty easily. I think Romania poses a bigger problem for Turkey, but I think that Turkey is just too good. They're 26th in the world for a reason. I think that they get past Slovakia, but in a close one. Then Path D is the hardest one for me to pick because I could see any of these teams advancing. I do think Denmark, in terms of technicality and everything, they are a better team than North Macedonia. But I think everybody's going to be behind this. The Ireland fan base has never been as excited. This is the best Irish team we've seen in a long time. Troy Parrott has been phenomenal for him, and they really should have Declan Rice, one of the best midfielders in the world. He gets to play in England because
It falls
he
to
lived
England,
in
man.
England for a period of time, but he was born in Ireland.
I know.
And he played for the Irish youth national team, so he should be a part of this Irish team. But that's a topic for a different day. This Ireland team, though, the fan base is awesome. They're going to be absolutely rocking. To even get to this point, they had to pull some crazy upsets and score a lot of late goals in extra time. Troy Parrott was absolutely phenomenal in the last qualifying stage. Think his heroics will happen again, and they will get past Denmark, and Ireland will be in the World Cup.
Chase, talk us through the EPL as we look across the pond at the English Premier League.
So the Premier League it's getting tasty now. It's we've got a bunch of different races going on. Obviously, we have the championship race to see who wins the title. We've got top four, which is really a top five race because the top five teams make Champions League, and that's a big financial boost for a lot of these clubs. And then we also have a really, really tasty relegation battle this year. So obviously, there's only two teams that are really in the title race right now, Manchester City and Arsenal. Manchester City just beat Arsenal at the weekend in the English League Cup. So they've got a lot of momentum, absolutely dominated Arsenal. Arsenal is 9 points clear right now with a game in hand, but Manchester City does have the fact that they get to play one more game, so they could potentially cut it to 6, and then they get to play Arsenal. So if they beat Arsenal, they could potentially cut it to 3, and Arsenal's got some tough games down the stretch where they can drop points. So this could get a lot tighter really quick, and could go down to the final day. But Man City's going to obviously have to beat Arsenal when they play them. Manchester United have kind of cemented themselves after a really good period under Michael Carrick in third. I really don't see them really challenging for the title. They're too far out, but I also think that they've given themselves a pretty good gap where they're going to hold on to third ahead of Aston Villa, who's in fourth, who haven't played that well down the stretch, but do have a good gap because Manchester United, respectively, are on 55 points and Villa are on 54. They are 5 points clear of Liverpool and 6 points clear of Chelsea, respectively. So they're in a good spot. Then we really have Liverpool, Chelsea, and then Brentford all challenging for that last Champions League spot. Liverpool has struggled on form as of late. Chelsea has as well. Chelsea's lost 4 games in a row. Brentford's actually been the best team on form as a way. And then we also have a shock. Everton could potentially challenge in this group too, entering the mix as well. Everton and Brentford have played really well down the stretch. Liverpool and Chelsea have struggled. Ultimately, I do see one of the bigger sides like Liverpool or Chelsea grabbing that 5th spot, but I do think this top 4 remains ultimately the same. But then got to look at the relegation battle right now, which is everybody's talking about. Tottenham just suffered a massive blow. They call it a 6-pointer because Tottenham lost to relegation zone team Nottingham Forest to really cement themselves in a big hole. Tottenham has not won a game this entire 2026 in the Premier League. They have not won a Premier League game since December of last year. They are 1 point clear of the relegation zone with West Ham, and they have a tough schedule with West Ham like breathing down their necks. This is really scary if I'm a Spurs fan because you're pretty much looking relegation in the face. Midweek last week they got a good result against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, but then losing 3-0 to Nottingham Forest, just definitely really scary. They got 7 more games to go. This relegation battle it's between West Ham and Tottenham at the moment. It's going to heat up a lot, and we could even see Burnley in that mix too, and Forest. So from 16 to 19, it's really tight. We could see some teams leave the zone, some teams stay down, and ultimately, I hate it for you, Will, because I know you're an honorary Spurs fan, but just for the plot and everything, I would love to see Spurs go down. So
Look, as long as Wrexham goes up, I'm cool with it.
Wrexham is, and they are right on that last playoff spot right now. They're tied, I believe, for it on points. They're just down on goal differential. So hopefully Wrexham can have a good end to the stretch into the season in the championship and get into one of those playoff spots, which I do think with the vibes and just everything they've done really well in tournament style football. Obviously going pretty far in the FA Cup this year. I think that they could make it into the Prem for 3 successful promotions, but we'll just have to see what happens. But I would love Wrexham to be in the Prem next year.
100%. Also, I want to give a shout out to my Wickham Wanderers. They are, I believe, 4 points out of the playoffs in EFL League One, so we're trying to get back up to the championship. As we now pivot on to what's going on in the association, just quick touch on it. Luke and Chase. First Luke, then Chase. What do y'all think about the East?
Oh, yeah. Tatum's back, shooting 29% from 3. It kind of looks like he's altered his jump shot a little bit. I have seen some clips on Twitter. It looks pretty horrendous. I also want to say the Hornets are on fire.
Yes, they are.
They have the second highest point differential in their wins. So obviously not with losses. It's the second highest in NBA history. They win on average of 18 points a game.
Ooh.
They just beat the Kings by like 40 tonight. This Hornets team, now granted, they're probably not going to be a top 6 seed this year. They could maybe make a push. I don't really see it. But like in years to come, this is going to be a very dangerous Hornets team. And then the Bucks, apparently they're going to lose Giannis. The Giannis and the Bucks are not on good terms right now. Apparently he's going to the Rockets in the offseason. So, and then I saw another thing in the new CBA. This is like my biggest pet peeve with the NBA. 65 games you have to play to be eligible. You have to do your job for 65 out of the 82. They want to lower that to 60 because, like, not all of these people are playing these games. So I think Luka's not eligible for MVP. Jokic is like 2 games for not being eligible. SGA is like 5 games for not being eligible. There's a bunch of people. Cade Cunningham might end up winning MVP.
That's why I watch hockey, guys, by the way.
Yeah.
Just want to put that out there.
Because of the whole drama with people not playing. So, yeah, it's a whole crapshoot.
Luke is the MVP. I'm going to sit here and say that right now. Luke is the MVP.
He won't win it because he doesn't play. So
I know.
Chase, what do you think about the Eastern Conference?
Well, I mean, a couple weeks ago, I would have said this is the Celtics conference, but Tatum has not looked as good as one might hope down the stretch, and the Pistons have been playing some really good basketball. Got a big win over the Lakers last night, winning 4 in a row. This Pistons team's looking really good. Knicks are hanging in there, playing some good basketball too as of late, kind of getting hot at the right time, and the Cavs are looking all right as well. But the real 2 teams to talk about that have been absolutely red hot, the Hawks have really turned it on. Jonathan Kuminga has been a huge boost to this young Hawks core and this young Hawks team. And then, the Hornets, we talked about it post All-Star break. This Hornets team has been on fire. I could fully see them. They're in the spot now where they can jump the Miami Heat, the Magic, and the 76ers, and potentially set themselves up with a really good opportunity to play, maybe a Boston, or, if they get lucky, maybe past the Hawks and get a New York. But ultimately, this Charlotte team is going to make the playoffs from the play-in. I love what they've done down the stretch. They're playing really good basketball, super fun to watch, and whoever gets them in the first round, that's going to be very nerve-wracking.
100%. Now we're pivoting to the West. I just want to say the Phoenix Suns will climb out of the play-in. We will do it. We will do it. We will be a 6 seed. Screw the Houston Rockets, or the Minnesota Timberwolves, or the Denver Nuggets. Screw them all. We're coming for blood. Go Suns. That's my NBA take. That's about as far as my ball of knowledge goes, other than the Suns. I know the Suns pretty well, but that's about it. Luke, what's going on in the West?
Yeah, I'm going to start from bottom up. We had some great bottom feeder Twitter beef the other day with the Grizzlies and the Pelicans. The Pelicans passed the Grizzlies, who were obviously at a takeoff, and all the Pelicans fans were rage-baiting Grizzly fans on Twitter. It was hilarious. Anyways, Warriors super injury riddled. Curry, I don't think Green's hurt, but they've got some key injuries. Have been really sliding as of late with 2-8 in their last 10. And then I want to talk about Luka, who is currently getting Ilya Taporiad right now. He's in a child lawsuit. His child is not with him. His wife, fiance, whoever she is filing for child support, and Luka's literally dropping 40 every game. It's kind of insane. This is a very scary version of Luka.
I think Ilya Taporiad may be the best verb I've ever heard on this podcast.
That's what happened. He got Ilya Taporiad. Poor Gaethje. And he is doing what Taporiad is going to do to Gaethje. He's just beating everybody. Anytime they get in like a 5-point game in the fourth quarter, they're winning. Their last 10 wins that have been within 5 points in the fourth quarter, they have won. So, I mean, it is absolutely insane the kind of terror this Lakers team is on. And then if Wemby can stay healthy, Wemby, when he plays, the Spurs are 22-1 in his last 23 games. So if he plays and continues to play, they are going to be very dangerous with coming for the Thunder to come out of this Western Conference. So it's going to be a very interesting playoffs. I don't think it's going to be the walkthrough like the Thunder had last year. I think there's a lot more challenges in the West this year.
Chase.
I 100% agree. I think the top 3 seeds right now, Thunder, Spurs, and Lakers, could all potentially go to the finals with how well they're all playing. I mean, Luka is playing some of the best basketball we've seen him play. He could score at will. LeBron has looked great down the stretch. Austin Reeves has looked great. They're playing good defense. They're playing elite offense, which I know is crazy to say, but they're playing good defense. The Spurs have looked phenomenal when Wemby plays, and to be fair, in their own right, they played some really good basketball. They've got a really good roster constructed down there. I mean, it's so unfair. They get Tim Duncan and David Robinson, and then they just luck into getting Victor Wembanyama. So, I mean, this Spurs team is finally back to relevance and will challenge. The Thunder team, again, SGA is playing well. They're playing good basketball. I'm just not completely sold on them yet. I don't know what it is. I'm just not sold on this team yet to win the championship again this year, to go back to back. I just don't think they're good enough to do that, and everybody's really high on them. They were high on them early in the season, saying that they're going to break the Warriors record. There's too much for this team not to be a disappointment in the playoffs. So that's where I'll leave it at there. And then you have a kind of a threesome with the Nuggets, Timberwolves, and Rockets kind of all clustered behind the Lakers. I think all 3 of them can move around, but then I just don't. Well, I hate to say it for you, man, but I don't think the Suns will catch the Rockets. That's just too many games with so little left in the season. So I think the Suns will probably sit there at 7, Clippers at 8, and then the Trailblazers, it's been a nice season, but not really challenging for anything. And then the Warriors have just been so injury riddled. And I want to say ESPN had the Warriors in 2nd in the Western Conference going into the season. So that just shows you the state of ESPN sports is at the moment.
Shout out Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah, Dan Orlovsky, flamed by the Pat McAfee show today. It was awesome.
Love Pat McAfee, though.
Love it. Mm-hmm. Best things to have this weekend as we end every Monday episode. March Madness, elite, best time of the year. Absolutely had a ball watching it at Luke's house. Skipping going to Mississippi State Vanderbilt baseball game in favor to bet and watch on March Madness. Great decision. Golf on Sunday. Played with Charlie Harrell, Sam Wilson, Luke's dad, and Luke's younger brother. I torched them. It wasn't even close on the course. Asserted my dominance at Memphis National, and my third is not Georgia Tech or Scott Cross. I think that goes enough said. I'm heartbroken. I understand it. I would have done the same thing. I'm very happy for him. I could not say that enough. However, I'm a Troy Trojan. I bleed Cardinal and white. I do not know where we go from here. Maybe get the high point coach. I don't know. He played at Troy, but a lot of question marks in the air for something that has been such a good thing for the past 2 years, which is Troy hoops. Yeah, hurts the word. This is worse than John Summerall, and I played on that football team. Actually, that's such a lie. I was so pissed that I found out that my coach was leaving over Twitter in bed at 2 a.m. But yeah, I just wanted to get after Jason on that one. No, but awesome for the Cross family. Wreckham Tech will now have a team to root for in the ACC in Georgia Tech. So, Luke, what happened this weekend?
Obviously, March Madness. It's the best time of the year. This is my favorite tournament of the year. I sat on my couch for 12 hours for 4 days straight.
Yes, we did.
I took off work for the first 2 days, and then that's but a parlay into my second thing. I made up the money I took off work with my gambling. I won like $200 something. I have never won this much money in my life. I'm putting it on my car note. I'm on a Marvel comic subscription. I've been reading Marvel comics from this. This is awesome.
Generational wealth.
Yeah, I have some wealth right now. So, and of course, the Bruins ruined more wealth for me tonight. But anyways, then yesterday I went and hung out with Sam Wilson. We watched Project Hail Mary, the new Ryan Gosling movie. That was peak. I didn't know anything about the movie going into it. I just knew they were going to be in space. That is probably one of the best movies I've seen in theaters in the past few years. It was a phenomenal movie. I mean, I really do recommend going to watch it.
I need
It
to
was
check it out.
awesome because
Check it out.
yeah, definitely will. We know you're a big movie guy.
I went and saw what's it in theaters? It's a new animated film. Hoppers.
Wait, what?
Yeah, look it up. Good film. Me and Chloe went. I enjoyed it.
Really?
I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was entertaining, a little woke, but entertaining. Chase, go ahead.
Yeah, with Disney. But
Pixar, man.
anyways,
Come on now.
I wish I could have the betting luck that y'all had. I made
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
some
whoa, 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 whoa,
Champions
whoa,
League
whoa, whoa,
picks.
whoa, 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 whoa. Pause. Y'all is a very strong word here. The
Okay,
men's tournament wrecked me. I mean,
Dude.
I got
Well,
railroaded.
wait till I tell you what happened to me. So I've never been a big bettor, because I know I'd get addicted to sports betting because it's awesome. It's so much fun. Last week I was like, you know what? My uncle's in the tournament. I got to make some plays. And so I did all my research, everything, constructed good parlays, had good game picks, everything. I did not hit a single bet all of last week. And I made about 10.
I made about
I went
30
yeah.
bets and hit 2.
So, I mean, it was pretty rough. So that was not something good that happened this weekend. But March Madness is elite. I love the first weekend of March Madness when you can literally wake up, go down to your couch at 11 in the morning and watch basketball from 11 to 11 p.m. 12 straight hours of basketball is overly elite. However, this year I actually got to experience it live on Thursday, which was super fun. Got to see Nebraska-Troy, not as fun, but then got to see the start of the Vandy McNeese game, which was a lot of fun. So March Madness was great. Then the big news I knew about, I will say I'd known about this for about 2 weeks-ish, that something could be happening because the Georgia Tech assistant athletic director was really hammering me about trying to convince my uncle to look at Georgia Tech. And obviously I didn't say anything because we're not going to tamper. But this has been in the works. Like, my uncle has deserved a big-time job like this for a long time. And so I'm really happy that he feels like Georgia Tech is the place for him to win and compete at. I will tell y'all here on the podcast, had even bigger offers last year, had, some really good opportunities throughout his career to go and further, his basketball journey. Obviously, with his success at Troy, schools were going to come calling, but he has really picked one that he feels he can win at. They're going to support him financially. It's just been awesome to see. They're giving him. I mean, the PR rollout on Instagram is absolutely insane. I think
It's
I've
been
seen
great.
about 40 Scott Cross posts from Georgia Tech athletics, Georgia Tech basketball in the last 48 hours. So really excited for him. Had a great press conference. I think he's going to do great things. It's going to be tough, but I'm really excited for him. And that being said, my all of my cousins are, I think, I don't know what my oldest cousin Austin that played on the Troy team is going to do, but the middle one kind of pitched me Georgia Tech to come maybe go get my master's there. And so I'd been considering that prior to, like, back in the fall.
Brother, don't take
I was
any
looking at,
offense to this, but can you get into Georgia Tech?
Yeah, no,
yes.
that would be one hell of a.
Did you get into
great-
Georgia Tech by yourself?
Yes.
That's
I
impressive.
did in the fall.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
a tough institution,
so
dude.
Yeah.
it is. So, I mean, to obviously get a really good education, now I'm going to have a little help and everything. So maybe considering pivoting from one tech school to another. So we'll have to see what happens.
That'll be
But
interesting.
really excited for my family. Sucks for Troy. I know
Yeah, it does suck for
that
Troy, Chase.
it
Thanks.
sucks for Troy, but I can really say that he could have left sooner, and he chose to stay and deliver 2 championships, which was awesome. And honestly, I know it sucks, but I mean, there's a point where if you stay too long in a place, your stock ultimately goes down, and he's leaving when his stock was at the highest. I wish he would have left on a better note following that NCAA tournament game, but overall, 7 great years at Troy, 5 20-win seasons, and
We're very
2
appreciative
Sun
for
Belt
the Cross
championships, 2
family.
Sun Belt regular season. Really left Troy basketball in a good spot, and I know he's given some advice on who the successor could be, and so we'll just have to see what happens. But Troy basketball is going to be good in the Sun Belt regardless who's there. So, but I'm very excited for Georgia Tech.
Percent. Congratulations to you and your family. And as we end this episode, I just want to announce that the Memphis Tigers beat Ole Miss in baseball. Hell yeah, go to hell, Ole Miss. And that'll conclude our episode 51 of Swiss Army Sports. This has been Will, Chase, and Luke. Until next time, have a good night. Let me go punch end recording.
MLB opening day, Thursday.